Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you're having a good start to the week. I'm your host, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. First and foremost, let me apologize. Thursday, I thought I was going to be able to get to a point where I could set up and do the show live. I was not able to do that. I was traveling from west to east, and unfortunately, my flight was a little bit delayed, and I didn't want to run the chance of not being able to put out a show at all. So what I did was I put up a rebroadcast. So forgive me. Unfortunately, I left as early as I could from Albuquerque, but I had to get from Albuquerque to Raleigh and Raleigh to Danville, Virginia. Danville, Virginia, because my Aunt Shirley, may Allah be pleased with her, returned to Allah on Saturday. And as a collective group, the family was trying to get there to be here in the final moments. We were blessed to be able to be there. I will be talking about my Aunt Shirley, but I will be talking about her in a tribute to Aunticism. That's the word that I've put up there. Aunticism, the act of being a loving and beloved aunt. And I have some things I'm going to refer to. They're nothing new, but it's really just the overall aesthetics and love and spiritual nature of being an aunt. A lot of times we don't talk about that. We talk about our relatives, talk about our crazy aunt, our crazy uncle. But in the spiritual nature of things, it's something different between an aunt and something different between an uncle. Not just the gender. I'm just talking about the overall metaphysics of what that process is and how you get there and how we celebrate. Because I think we really need to celebrate our aunts, not just my aunt, but your aunt too. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is later this week, inshallah, we'll have a special guest. I'm just trying to work it out. So, I know we haven't had our Saturday spotlights on for a moment, so I'm not going to put it on a Saturday spotlight. I'm actually going to try and have it on Thursday, inshallah. I know you guys have been mad loyal coming on Saturdays and things like that. I have to assume responsibility that I have not been as diligent with the Saturday spotlights. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're still going Monday through Thursdays, just short of what we used to do in terms of 7 days a week. So, and of course, you guys know that there's been some transitions I've had to deal with on stage, off stage, on camera, off camera as well. So I have to calibrate that as well. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to my mom, Aunt Maxine, and my cousin Jamie, who actually drove down from Washington, D.C. to Danville, Virginia to be with my Aunt Shirley. Now, she was listed for home hospice when she left Duke University, and Allah is the best of planners in these things, but she deteriorated rather rapidly. I was blessed to be able to get there 2 times, one in September, to sit, eat with her in fellowship, and just be her little Bryant. That's what she called me. And also I had the opportunity to be there at the end and make du'as and request all kind of barakah for her, and just very, very emotional, but spiritually fulfilling situation. And on top of that, I would be remiss if I didn't say, welcome back, Sister Satana Whitfield. Satana, thank you so much for coming back. Just so you guys know, and I told her she would have been back sooner, but I told her she was going to take a shout out show, unpaid leave day. She's going to take a sick day, and we hope that you are feeling better. And I'm gonna tell everybody, please, 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 during these times as we get into December and January, that little cough, that little sneeze, don't take it lightly. It could be something. So please guard your health. Again, guard your health. Okay, so enough of the preaching part. We're gonna be talking about aunticism and a tribute to Aunt Shirley and a tribute to all the aunts out there. So if you're listening, great. If you have an aunt and she's still around, call her up. Call her up, love her up, give her a hug, all those things. Show up uninvited with a bucket of chicken or ribs, whatever you got to do. It ain't got to be a reason to celebrate your aunt. You understand? No reason to celebrate your aunt. And no reason to celebrate your uncle either. But I'm saying this is the modality and the framework of why it's so important. It was great to see everybody congeal. And when I say congeal, I mean people came from different places. Literally, they were like, listen, let me stop what I'm doing to make sure that even though she was in a space where she wasn't responsive, she couldn't hear anybody, well, she could hear, but she couldn't talk and things like that. It was in nature that it was love that filled the house. And I think that, any of us would want that type of thing for ourselves, our relatives, and alhamdulillah, all praises due to Allah. We're able to give it to my Aunt Shirley. All right. So we get ready to rock here on the Shout Out Show. We say Aunt Shirley, a tribute to Aunticism. We'll be right back on the SOS. And we are back. So what's the Shout Out Show without shouting out the world famous Shout Out Show family, Shout Out Soul Soldiers? You see what I'm saying? This is, excuse me, so important. So without further ado, let's get our people in here. Sister Tana, I know who's up first. Let's bring her on in. I'm going to give a shout out, of course, to Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sending family to my auntie. Yes, rest in peace, rest in power, rest in light. Just rest. You had a good life and you deserve whatever it is on the other side, the highest levels of paradise. We pray that Allah gives that to you in abundance, Aunt Shirley. Sister Ree, good to see you. Shout out, of course, to Derek and my main man, Juwan. We got to get together. I haven't heard them. I'm going to have to call and check on you. Yes, indeed. Next up, the road warrior, Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son, got in that car and drove with Sister Jamie, cousin Jamie, and my Aunt Maxine. They were the fun bunch. Got in the car at I love them, but they ain't no spring chickens. But they got there and they made it happen and drove down and fellowship and they were the rocks. Brothers and sisters, they were the rocks and they sat there as the matriarchs. And in the space of Aunt Shirley not being, they were the aunts that everybody needed. They were the aunts that everybody rallied around. They stayed over an extra day. They didn't have time, and they didn't have time. They didn't even plan it, but they stayed over. I remember them turning around, coming back to the house to make sure that they were there for the children, the grandchildren, the nieces, nephews, make sure they were there for them. And, and there's something to be said about that. And I'm going to talk about that throughout the show. So Sister Mary Moss, Mama Son, thanks so much. That's like she lived a life of service. My mom was a nurse, just so you guys know. She was a nurse at Memorial Hospital. Like she said, man, may Allah bless Aunt Shirley. I mean, my main man, Eric Carter. What's going on with you, G? Hope everything's well. I know you down in the city of Houston. It's a little moist down there, a little chilly, but hang in there. I'm sure some heat and dryness was right around the corner. Good to see you, brother. And we got to give a shout out to my main man, Altar Rashid. Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, our Canadian envoy to the show. What's going on, beloved? Appreciate you, man. Praise to the family. May Allah make it easy. People say that, may Allah make it easy. And I'm gonna tell you something. Even in the death of my father and loss of my father, Allah made it really, really easy. I'm gonna talk about how He made it easy during the show, and how He even made it easy with this situation. But yeah, don't take that saying, "May Allah make it easy," because He doesn't have to make it easy. He doesn't have to make it apparent. Doesn't have to make it accessible. Death can be extremely traumatic, but isn't it a blessing that when it does come, you have people who are aware of the process, and what they put in that space, of course, is sadness, and there's the aspect of missing someone that you really care about, but it's also the aspect of understanding the process. That this is something that is planned, it's promised, and we should never get out of the space of thinking somehow we can extend our own creation. Yeah, Red Fox had the best joke about a guy that quit smoking. Said quit smoking, stepped off the corner, got hit by a tobacco truck. My point is this: that we have to take care of our health, our spiritual health, our mental health, and our family health. And those are the things that we should really, really be concerned with, along with our community health. And in doing that, you have a life of purpose. And I think we need to talk about this too. Just having purposeful living is something that we're not really talking about these days. We're talking about politics and COVID and things like that. But whatever happened to purposeful living? We're going to talk about it as well. All right. And we got, of course, Sister Maxine Cade, the proprietor of BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. What's going on? Sister Shirley was a special sister-in-law, one we love dearly. My mother's name is May, just so you know. Her nickname is May. My Aunt Maxine is Max. And when I get around the corner, I'm not known as Preacher, but I'm known as May's boy. I just had to put that out there. But it's really important. And I commend, of course, my mom and my aunt beginning. They got on their horse and got down there. And they were blessed to be able to spend that time. Okay. And we want to give a shout out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. She says, welcome, SOS fam. Thank you, man. Allah bless. Aunt Shirley, we appreciate you, Sister Tana. And make sure that you help. All right. Love John Maxine. There you go, my main man. What's going on, Big L? What's going on, beloved? Appreciate you, man. And shout out, of course, to, I call you Big L. Well, there's two Leons. There's Big Leon and Little Leon. So Big L actually qualifies, but I would never call you Big Leon because that'd be Leon Alexander Sr. and that'd be blasphemy, brother. I'm sorry. So shout out to, and I never call him Big Leon either. I call him Mr. Alexander. I've been doing that since I was 4, and he will remain Mr. Alexander. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Okay. So here we're going to go. The nature of Aunticism is nothing new. It's nothing new. What I believe is we don't really pay attention as much as we could and draw what the power of the aunt is. There's a hadith, very famous hadith. If I'm being redundant, I apologize, but I'm going to repeat it. The Rasulullah, peace and blessings be upon him, was happened upon by a man who said he had committed a major sin, and he was looking to remove the major sin. So Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him, do you have a mother? And he said, no. He said, do you have an aunt? He said, no. He said, service your aunt, treat your aunt well. And what that has to do with is this, that in the premise of being an aunt, that the aunt had equal weight to being a mother. Let me say it again. In the premise of being an aunt, the functionality of the aunt is so powerful that in the absence of the mother, she has been valued by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, valued as a mother. Do you know how deep that is? I mean, I have to take a pause for that. Do you know how deep that is? And I think about it because, particularly in the African-American community and minority communities in general, the aunt is so powerful. When, and this is probably off the point a little bit, maybe off the point a little bit. But the funniest people in my life, that I was introduced to the humor and the whole aspect of joy has been aunts. My Aunt Ruth was hilarious. I had an Aunt Dut. I had an Aunt Ann. I had an Aunt Georgia May. They all had their own personalities. I had my Aunt Maxine, my Aunt Florence, my Aunt Shirley. But I have to bring that up because there's a majestic nature to being an aunt. I'm not saying there's nothing bad about being an uncle, but as a man, you deal with an uncle, and it's easy to deal with your uncle because your uncle's a man. And he has some of the same thoughts and emotions that you will have. But the aunt represents not just a maternal, here we go, a maternal valuation, but it's a spiritual annexation whereby she encompasses that I may have to lead this family. And when my grandparents passed away and my grandmother was older, it was my Aunt Ruth who drove the train. My father, yes, but he was the leader, but my Aunt Ruth was the one that drove that train. And literally, on my mother's side, it has been the aunts who have remained, and I have to say this, have steered the families for at least the last 20 some years. Now start thinking about this. The social capital of being an aunt. When I say the social capital, I mean, what is that valuation in the context of the world? I think of so many stories of a young man or a young woman being left with an aunt. So many stories of a young man or a young woman being raised by an aunt. The only thing, and I don't want to say that trumps the aunt, of course, is the grandparent. So you think of the all of the hadiths just about being mothers, that heaven lies at the feet of your mother, or your mother, your mother, your mother. The subscript of that, if you don't have a mother, your mother has another compartment, another compadre, if you will, and that is the aunt. So in Danville, we were able to watch a circle of aunts. I was fortunate in mid-September, I think it was the 16th, September 16th, and I had not been able to go visit my aunt, and she had been diagnosed terminal. She had leukemia, but at this point she'd been diagnosed terminal. And I just want to relay this story to you because at some point in time, you're going to have to understand just how special that these women are. So it's not just being a woman or mother. It's this whole thing of expanding capacity to have love and take on duties that may not be your own. Aunts raise kids, brothers and sisters. Aunts raise kids. Aunts save kids. A lot of times when, my mother don't understand me, your aunt understands you. I want to give a shout out. What's up, Bilal? Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To you and your queen, thanks for joining us, my brother. Good to see you. Shout out to Sister Sonia. So let me even throw this out here. Some of the framework of family foundation would be incomplete, dare I say, weakened without the premise of an aunt, without the premise of a female representation of the sister or the mother, a female presence, if you didn't have an aunt. And just today I was sitting around, then this is deep. I was sitting around thinking that in the African-American experience of slavery and middle passage and losing identity and familiar relationships and things like that, that this concept of an auntie still exists. Work with me here. That the concept of an auntie still exists when you don't know where you're coming from. You don't know, you're forced into family situations. You are raising children who are disconnected from their heritage. You are their heritage, and yet it's a beautiful, metaphysical, spiritual transition that happens all the time. Think about that. I mean, really, in your mind, Who was your favorite aunt? I don't even say who was your favorite aunt because that's not fair. Who's your favorite aunt? Who's your purposeful aunt? Who's your aunt that made you laugh? You see, because they all have different responsibilities and different functions. Some of the aunts are the ones that give you information. Some of the aunts are just there to give you a hug. Some aunts kick you in the pants. I had them all. My Aunt Dottie, I love her to death. But if you ain't on your game, she gonna smash you in the teeth. And here's the deal. We've been knowing this for a long time. I've been knowing this since I was a child. Some of my aunts cradle us, and some of us smack you upside the head. Some of them, they cradle you and smack you upside the head in the same conversation. And they right out, Maxine. But we appreciate this functionality. I got a little brother on here. What's going on, JTS? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Even my brother JT knows, while I know his mom, I know his aunt. And his aunt, God bless, is a former teacher. And we had great conversations when I was in Milwaukee learning how to be an educator. But she brought that out of it, and she was a nurturing person. So we're going to talk about the nurturing nature of aunts in this conversation about Aunticism here on the ShOUT Show. We'll be right back. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back. Shout out to Convenient Urgent Care, my main man, Jazz, with 3 convenient locations throughout the Houston area. So back on this conversation about aunticism. 2 aunts have actually come to see me perform live as a comedian. One is my Aunt Maxine, and the other is my Aunt Shirley. Now, let me explain the 2 aunts. My Aunt Maxine is gregarious. She's loud. She lives her best life in a public way. My Aunt Shirley, a little conservative, but full of jokes. One of my favorite things about my Aunt Shirley is, and no knock to my cousins, but we would sneak away to go to this place called Western Sizzler when we weren't supposed to, and we would not tell the truth about where we had been sometimes. Let me break this down in terms of kindness. When my Aunt Ruth passed away, it's totally unexpected. Literally much the same as my father. I talked to her actually the day she passed, and I talked to my dad the day before. When I went to go see my Aunt Shirley in September, I knew that she was not doing well. She was struggling. I was getting reports from my cousin Earl and Jason and Lisa. And when I walked through the door, she knew I was coming. This was not going to be a Western Sizzler day by any means. But when I walked through the door, my expectation was that she would be reduced in her functionality, if you will. She might be in the bed and I'd be bedside beside her or something like that. And it was totally cool. It was totally cool. Here's the power of Aunticism. She had seen me perform as a comedian. I watched her perform as an auntie. And when I got to the house, hear me now, when I got to the house, she came out. Body racked in pain, dealing with the effects of leukemia. But you wouldn't have known it though, because she came out and she was dressed in her clothes. She had on her rings and her bracelet. She had a cane. She walked from her room to the sofa. She sat down and we talked about life, how family was, how career was, how is my health. And she performed to the point where I got to be a little kid again. Let me explain this. A little kid again, because your aunts allow you to live in a space whereby they protect you from things. So the conversation is not about money. The conversation is not about love. The conversation is about joy and living in the moment. And we laughed and we joked. Some of the jokes were inappropriate. Let me add that in there. But it was just the power of being. The power of understanding being even in that situation. Even though she had been diagnosed terminal, she didn't live it. And I appreciated that. She didn't let me think it was the end, and she didn't think it was the end until it was the end. And what she said to me was so important. She goes, you know, when you leave out of here, you're the last one to know. You're the last one to know. And sometimes our aunties are so bright, they have to turn off the light for us. So even though there's a void, much the same as my Aunt Ruth and my Aunt Ann and my Aunt Georgia May and my Aunt Dut and all these beautiful personalities, there's a chain of transmission that every aunt has stepped in the void to make sure that all of us, myself and you, continue to live purposeful lives and question us when we don't and smack us upside the head when we know we're out of line, we know we're out of pocket, but they love us to the point that they love us to the point that they love us to the point that we can see it and appreciate it. So the whole idea, Aunticism, if you will, and I know I made the word up. Yes, I did. Is that you pick up the phone and you call them and you let them know you appreciate them. And you give them 3 or 4 or 5 or 50 minutes of their time because doggone it, they've given you that in abundance. And if they're gone and they return to Allah, then you pray. You pray for them. Why? Because 10 times out of 10, when you live in your life, they pray for you. Whether you know it or not, whether you appreciate it or not, this is the reality. This social realm, and I will say this, and we can talk about it later, but the whole idea, I feel like Aunticism is something that extends to the unseen. Every great aunt works on behalf of their family, their babies, their nephews, their nieces in the unseen, making sacrifices that you will never know about, and they won't talk to you. They won't explain it because I guess in the union of aunties, it's more about being about it than talking about it. And for that humility and that love and that consistency, I salute you. Because there's no other space where this happens. The collective thought, if you will, in the case of our Aunt Shirley, the collective thought that we all had to get there to say goodbye. It's a powerful message. I mean, people flying all over. And it reminded me, brothers and sisters, of when the late, great Muhammad Ali passed away. The sense of urgency that we had to get there before the angels came to question him in the grave, it's almost the same as every auntie that I've had. So listen, much love on Shirley. Family, stay strong. And thank you guys for listening to me. Shout out to Aunt Shirley, a tribute to Aunticism. I'm your brother, Preacher Moss. Inshallah, I'll be here tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.